So we are reading At the Dark End of the Street, Black Women, Race, and Resistance, A New History of the Civil Rights Movement from Rosa Parks to the Rise of Black Power by Danielle McGuire. And our sessions it started June 3rd and they last until July 29th. They are from 6:30 to 8.
Shuttling tired marchers back and forth from Montgomery to Selma on the night of March 25th, Liuzzo and Leroy Moten, a 19-year-old African-American, knew they had to be on lookout for the hostile Klan members waiting to attack them on the dark and lonely stretches of Highway 80. What they didn't know was that a carload of Klan members, whipped into frenzy by the wild rumors of interracial sex, spotted them at a stoplight in Selma shortly before their final trip of the day. When they had gotten far enough out of town and into a desolate stretch of highway through Lowndes County, the car carrying the 4 Klan members overtook Liuzzo's vehicle. With their guns poking out of the rolled-down windows, the Klansmen fired into Liuzzo's speeding car, killing her instantly. With blood splattered all over Liuzzo and Moten, the Klansmen drove off, believing they had killed both passengers. Deeply shaken but alive, Moten crawled out of the car, flagged down a passing truck full of freedom marchers, and told them about the brutal murder. And the question for that point is, what did you make of the KKK members' trial? Did it shock you that Viola's character was put on the stand, though she was a white woman? What do you think of a fellow white woman stating, "I don't know why they kept calling Mrs. Liuzzo a mother of 5. A mother wouldn't have gone off and left her children and come here"? What do instances like this say about gender roles and white supremacy even now? To me, it is evident that white supremacy does not ensure the survival or justice of all whites, as long as it seeks power, and that women with children only have one role once they become mothers, and that is to be a caregiver and nothing else. What do you think?
That that piece took me back to um, remember, Randie, I think it was you that asked a question about Dylan, the white guy that got like 20 years for raping someone. And I talked about how the judge was trying to use him as an example to let other white men know, this is not going to be tolerated. And so I saw this same kind of social pressure, I guess, in the way women reacted to Liuzzo's death, by the respectability standards in the white community in that era. She had stepped outside the bounds, and so in order to send a message to other white women, because remember, thousands of young white people were pouring into the South during this era to help with the movement, and so I think in order to send a message to other white women that you will not be forgiven, you will not be understood, you will not be welcomed back into the white community with open arms after you have, fought white supremacy on behalf of black people. So.
Well, if I may, Randie. Well, the FBI, according to the book, FBI and J. Edgar Hoover, they had his informant that rode along with the Klansmen at that particular time. And so the FBI, it was ironic that the FBI was the one that started, J. Edgar Hoover saw where everything was going, and he said, well, let's slander her, period. And that's what they started doing. And the Klan just basically fed off of it. So, they used the norms at that particular time. The woman should be in the house. No respectable mother would leave the 5 children behind. Down here with these freedom riders, and they having, all these orgies and things of that nature. So all of the respectability, the societal norms, and this woman actually being on the outside of societal norms at that particular time came into place. But I saw this, I'm going to be real brief, I saw, the KKK, they actually, I saw a documentary back in the 1920s that when it came to prohibition, they actually sped up integration and mixing of the races through prohibition, trying to keep everything as norm. So the harder they did this here, and the more they with white supremacy, the more that the races found they had in common. Thank you. Trying to keep it brief, y'all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Georgette?
Well, just a little bit. Yes, she stepped out of the boundaries there. That system of racial and social and gender control, and it made a fair game in that goes on today. I think when you ask the question, what does that say about gender roles and white supremacy? Even now, when you see women who want to stand up for the different social issues or feminist issues or just world rights issues, you'll see them, if they get to a point where they're affecting too much change, something will come out, you know, whether it's true or not, you know, something about their personal life to knock them down or make whatever they have to say or the movement that they're involved with less effective, because we're really very prejudicial people. Who you appear to be is sometimes more important than than the good you're trying to do. You know, we want you to look and be a certain way and, you know, be impeachable. So it's sad that, you know, this woman had to be made an example of, and other women said she's not a mother, and she had children, but she made a sacrifice to come down to help others because she wanted the world that her children grew up in to be better than, you know, what people were living in at that time. So that's all I have to say.
Well, even, you know, if I may, even when it came to Bernard Rustin, which Bernard Rustin was the, you know, was, and you can't, you know, when you were talking about, you know, Martin Luther King, you know, to slept with weapons, it was Bernard Rustin that went to him and told him, you know, you can't talk about nonviolence, you can't talk about a movement when you got all these weapons and these bodyguards. You know what I mean? So, but he had to stay in the background because of his homosexuality. You know, but he was really the catalyst before Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King, and he had been standing up for people's rights, you know, for a long time. And, you know, and everybody know about his behind the scenes when it came to the March on Washington, the organizing everything. But that was another way that they were going to use that you had alluded to, Madam, when it came to to Abernathy and Dr. King and Bernard Rustin, you know, using sex during the civil rights.
That's right. What'd you think about it, Randie?
Well, like I said in my question, when it just made me, I always have to tell people that, you know, when people argue, you know, racism isn't like real, or, you know, poverty discrepancies between black and whites aren't the same. You know, I always have to tell people white supremacy doesn't ensure that all white people are going to have it good. And you know, some white people, they take one for the team. And this was just an example for me to see that the way Viola's death was handled as one of those prime examples. Because she was a white woman. And, you know, white women are held on such a pedestal during this era, and still. And she was dragged through the dirt, much like black women were and are, and black men. And so to me, it just affirmed what I've been saying. And it was sad that her role as a mother was questioned as well. Because like you said, Georgette, you know, she just wanted her children, I would assume, to grow up in a better world. And at the end of the day, how are you going to tell your children to be better, to do better, when you never showed them an example? So it's a shame that her trial went the way it did. But I wasn't surprised.
Benita?
Yeah.
Benita? No?
I have a different take on it myself. I don't believe that white men, which were the ones in power, put anybody on the pedestal other than themselves. You know, the difference between black women and white women is they were allowed to walk freely. But behind those closed doors, they were being sexually abused. They were being, by their husbands, oppressed, banged up, banged down, and every other way. So I don't think it was because, you know, it was simply trying to send a message that we look at all women the same when you lay with them. It don't make a difference. You know what I'm saying? I just don't think it's because they reverend white women so much. And I don't think they reverend anyone. I mean, even to the day, power by white men is power. They will kill their mother if they have to, in some cases. So I don't think it was about that. I really don't. Women in general were not respected. The difference between black women and white women is that black women, of course, you know, they didn't even look at us as human, much less women. They at least looked at them as women sometimes.
But why is it that the white women were not supportive of her?
Because, you know, you're talking about the Bible Belt. That's the first thing. You know, I'm not, you know, I'm out in the day and they look at me and call me a Yankee. We're in 2014.
I'll be right back.
And I'm not trying, and you know, I'm really very serious about that. So I just think that it's a whole different mindset in the southern states then. And I don't want to offend anyone, but I'm from the East Coast, and it's a different way of thinking. I just think it was all about that, you know, Bible throwing, you know, make sure you make the St. John's and sit in the front.
Well, actually, I think that Ladies' Home Journal did a national survey of women, and that's where they discovered that women around the country were not very supportive of Viola Liuzzo. You know, they felt like she had, you know, brought this on herself, kind of an attitude.
Well, that's sick.
Well, I think
Once again, I wouldn't have made it because I couldn't have ever turned. You know, my girl's standing for something good. I got her back. You know, so who are you talking to? The wrong woman? I wouldn't have made it because I'd be the only one. They probably killed me too for standing up for her. You know, I've been that one woman that said no, no, no. And I understand that. I just still do believe that when it comes to white male power, that's always been the question, and white male abuse of everyone else, you know, that they're really not exempt.
you know, I can really see where Benita is coming from with that. I do believe that all women in that particular area were being abused, and I always go back to a micro sense of how the world works. One must start abuse in their own family, and then as they get better at it, they get more emboldened. So as white supremacists, as they got more emboldened, you know, they went outside of their house because they didn't have any barriers. So the white woman was abused. You know, she just as not as much as the black woman, but she still was abused then and still now. And the statistics shows that across the country, and especially in the state of South Carolina, where South Carolina has more domestic violence among white women and white men in murders than any other state in the union. Not per capita, but by the numbers.
I think that Benita and Eugene made a good point about, you know, white women in terms of when it comes to abuse and the oppression that they face. I do agree that it was the same in the household. We have read countless, you know, we see countless narratives and articles about it all the time, but I don't want us to forget the power that white women also had in terms of implementing the type of violence black women endure and black men. You know, in a lot of the lynching photos, you see white women standing right by the tree smiling, pointing, laughing, you know, seeing very distant, desensitized by these images. So while the abuse is the same, you know, we all bleed red and bruise, purple or red, but at the end of the day, I do feel like white women, especially during this era, and even now, play a huge role in the constant disenfranchisement because men listen to their women, you know, and I think that, you know, if it was the fact that we were all experiencing the same type of oppression and turmoil, the exact same, we wouldn't be going through it. I don't think. I think that white women are a lot more powerful than we know, especially on being a predominantly white campus, I was honestly more shaky of white women than white men. White men had the power, but in terms of like immediate power, but white women, passivity, to me, it's just as violent. The non-action, the not speaking up, the pointing and laughing, to me is just as violent, and it has the same impact as immediate power that white men have. That's just in my opinion.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I have any empathy. I'm just, who don't get me wrong? No, I'm just saying that, you know, as far as white men are concerned, everything is more about power. I know white women were powerful. They, you know, obviously, even now from what I see, they got a lot of power. But I still think at the end of the day, you know, of course, we weren't even looked at as human, much less women. You know, they might have banged them up, but at least they looked at them as a woman. We weren't even looked at as human, and weren't even treated human. So, you know, I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that I think white women at some point were just used as pawns. You understand what I'm saying? They were just at some point they got past the, you know, the lily, you know, virgin, whatever. It got more about, you know, power over everybody. And if you lay with them, walk with them, talk with them, that's what's going to happen. We don't care about you either.